Welcome back to the Something's Wrong Here podcast. If you don't follow us on socials, do that, please. I'm to the point of begging.
Thank you, Randy's mom.
Yeah, thanks for following us, Mom.
Very nice of you.
That's our one follower. But I am Randy.
I'm Ken-Zee.
And I'm Brian.
Well, Brian, what we got tonight?
Tonight's a special treat for all of us. Special treat.
Special treat.
Special. It doesn't get more special than
that's expectations.
I like to build it up just a little bit.
Yeah.
I like to set the bar below ground so you can't trip.
Nice low floor. Our guest tonight is a friend of mine. His name is Nate Zier. Nate is the executive director of a non-for-profit organization that supports young people going into the trades. Can you give me the name of what is it?
Yeah, National Institute for Construction Excellence.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very admirable.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I'm a nice guy.
That's like thinking rice for some reason. Yeah, nice. Nate's a buddy of mine, and we've known each other for a long time.
I got a little synopsis of you, and the background was about a mile long. You've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I'm a proverbial wanderer, but it just kind of it's organic, and it's all about. To me, it's finding those risks and taking the leap and just not being scared of it, and that's how you make a career, right?
So so we got a few things we want to talk about, but I'm really kind of interested. Tell us your story. You can tell us as little you want that brings us to today, or you can tell us as much as you want.
Cliff notes of your background.
Where you come
Don't
from?
start at birth.
What's the story? And why is it that when I met your twin brother, I thought he was a hungover version of you?
Well, I mean, it's because he used to be large and he isn't married and doesn't have kids, so now he's like really skinny and fit. And I'm a little more plump, so I got a little more meat in my face than he does these days. A little more gray hair.
I just remember at the Wide Open one year, I knew Nate real well, played a lot of golf together, and I was standing next to this gentleman. I'm like, that looks like Nate, but man, Nate looks like he lost some weight, or he's like hungover. Like I think maybe he's hungover that one morning. But I'm like, Nate, you look terrible, dude. And he's like, that's great. Nate's my brother. Thanks for letting me know.
For body positivity, we're going to refer to you as just
rotund.
I was going to say cushion for the pushing, but whatever you want.
Lovable.
What I want to know is you brought up that you are in the trades.
We got to get his story.
I know. I'm going to get a story, but what I would love to hear you touch on, if you're up for it, how you went from the the psychological standpoint of everything into the trades.
That's part of it.
Well, so I'm going to break the very first question where he said don't start at birth, and I'm going to start at birth.
All right, there you go. Cool.
Because I think it actually does play a part, and I didn't see it for a long time, but I am the son of a underemployed tradesperson. He was a drywall worker, Vietnam vet, art school dropout, kind of proverbial wanderer, and my mother is a professor of philosophy and women's studies.
Excellent.
And so, they were both.
That's contrast.
Yeah, right? Opposites attract.
The same voter household.
Yeah, no, well, they were. It wasn't surprising when it ended in a divorce, but over 50% of marriages do today. So,
it was a coin toss, anyways. So,
yeah, it really is. So I was raised with a background in appreciation for skilled labor, the idea that you really can work your way up. My aunt in St. Louis was a union laborer. She was also a single mom for a number of years, and just watching her career and her ability to take care of her kids. My grandfather was in security for Chrysler Corporation, was able to work through there without a college degree, and really had a good pension and a good availability to provide for his family. And then the other side, I had academia. My mother is a professor of philosophy and women's studies. My aunt on that side is also a professor. My grandparents on that side were both English professors at Beloit College in Wisconsin.
You guys are professionals.
Yeah, professional at something.
Very intellectual, very academic.
Professional proverbial wanderers.
Yeah. And so, but I graduated high school in 2002, so I'm 40 years old. And I think we hit a point in the 90s and 2000s in particular where there wasn't really a lot of focus on what we should be doing in college. It was just, we should go to college.
You should go to college.
Yeah. Yeah, you need a degree. Upward mobility was through a degree. And I grew up in a smaller community, Kirksville, Missouri, about 17,000 people. So I'm a Kansas City region transplant. Moved down here at the end of 2011. But, you know, you graduate high school, you go to college, and I had like 6 majors in 2 years. Look, I partied a lot too. You know, things take you out of college organically, right? World of Warcraft had just came out. So I was playing all the World of Warcraft, going to all the parties, making sure I could pay my rent with a job. And
Natural Light's what took me out of college.
What's that?
Natural Light's what took me out of college the first time.
That's a contributing factor.
Yeah, it was definitely. You know, but if you're trying to put school on top of that, one of those things has to give. And school was one that gave because I didn't understand the end goal in sight. So, dropped out of college, spent 5 years in the restaurant industry, several of those in my hometown. Found an opportunity to move over to Macomb, Illinois, and help open a restaurant there.
I'm sorry.
He's from Illinois, so.
Yeah.
I'm from Springfield. But
Well, yeah, I went to college in Macomb. I'm Chicago born. So, yeah.
Nice.
Little Illinois roots here.
We all have our problems.
Yeah, we all have our flaws. I mean,
Yeah, I'm still a little bit of a Cubs fan.
So, can I ask you a question right away based off of your education, your upbringing, and everything else? What do you think of the vocational trades being removed from schools? Right, like high school educations, like shop class and things like that.
Yeah,
or the accessibility being removed, I should say.
I think right now, today, and I won't discount that for a while there was a trend to remove them from schools. Today, I think it is more a barrier to access of qualified educators. There are schools that would love to open trade programs, but they lack the ability to find a certifiable instructor, and they lack the ability to fund the necessary equipment and training and space needed to really implement a program with fidelity.
Can I ask you a follow-up then?
well, yeah, and I want to.
I want to hit him with my follow-up, and I'm going to bring you right back. With that, if we can't find qualified instructors, I've had this thought process in my head. Why can't we send kids into the field? And I have an immediate argument, which is insurance purposes.
That's bullshit.
I agree. I agree. But I am curious about this too. And I truly believe that every child going through public education and private,
so what are you saying? Like send a 16-year-old into the field for part of the day?
I think that all of the
instead of vocational
kids going through the book learning should also go through the physical, because there's no reason to learn to swim online, in my opinion. And so what I like is the kids getting their hands dirty. Kids that like to play in mud. Why are we taking that away and making them hold a pencil? We need bricklayers. We need people that build things with their hands. We need carpenters.
I've made this argument too. Why are teachers discouraging it?
So
saying that you're going to end up doing this because you're stupid.
Go back here for 1 second. I think all of that ties in. Why are we not able to put kids in the field to get a real hands-on experience that is meant to be captivating, not meant to be learn this so you go to school, learn this so you learn to get to college?
I think I would answer that with kind of just saying that the education system is cyclical, right? You know, school counseling as a profession really stemmed out of, was it the National Defense Authorization Act after World War II? Because we had all of these vets returning, and we had to find workforce training programs for them to enter. And so, you know, you started seeing a lot of these vocational training centers opening to help retool and reskill America. Then you saw a birth rate boom, kind of the modernization of career technical education, the Perkins Act, things like that. So funding really started going that route. But, you know, in the 80s and 90s, like there was really a recession that started to take a lot of manufacturing jobs out of the United States, which was a huge segment of the skilled trades employment sector. You saw a real decline in kind of federally backed construction projects, because they really still are one of the largest employers of construction workers, particularly on heavy highway, things like that. But we're back at a point now where I think schools understand that the trades are a valuable skill, and I think teachers, some are not there, right? Some are classically trained teachers, and you teach what you know, right? Math teachers teach math.
Yep.
So it's to be understood then that they're going to teach from their life experiences. Their life experiences are probably that they grew up in a nuclear household. They had really good instructors. They had a good education system. They graduated high school. They went to college. They did student teaching. They became a teacher, and they go directly back into the classroom. Mm-hmm. So what's their experience?
They never get their hands dirty.
Right.
They forgot how to swim in person, in this analogy that I love to go back to.
Well, let's just bring this further. And I experienced it this week, and it was even referenced, and I know this is
Take it
touches
away,
you.
ditch digger.
But that being said, engineers are building these jobs, and they have never been out in the field. They don't know they've never seen half of the stuff that they are drawing on a piece of paper in real life. They've never seen what it takes to put that in the ground, make it happen, build it up, build it down long. They don't know. And that's because they sat in a classroom. They got the knowledge that they needed from a book. They've seen pictures, but a lot of them,
They saw people swimming.
They saw the swimming happen, but so they feel like they're qualified now.
Well, I'd even say that there's such a shortage in some of like the drafting and design positions. Some of that work's starting to get outsourced overseas.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's weird that in my field they're so backed up, and it is being outsourced to my company.
So let me ask you one thing you said about training, like a lack of accessibility to credentialed qualified instructors. Are now if you were going to do trade education in a high school, I'm assuming that certification requirements are the same as any other classroom teacher.
No, incorrect.
They're not.
No,
okay. Tell me about it.
So to be certified to teach a skilled trade in both Missouri and Kansas, essentially you need to have 4,000 hours of verifiable work experience. That number varies a little bit between states, but around there over the last 10 years. That's a pretty low bar. The reality is most people work about 2,000 hours a year in their job. So you're talking about 2 full verifiable years of trade experience in the field.
But here's where my question comes in. Isn't that really hard to get when you're a teacher? And then, because a lot of those positions are filled by teachers. Or are you saying bring in somebody just...
bricklayers teaching bricklayers.
If I'm a foreman of bricklayers, I could go in and teach these kids.
I'm thinking somebody in shop class that is a teacher that does this.
This isn't somebody that was taught to teach bricklaying. This is somebody who wants a bricklayer is teaching.
And now there are, to your point, some classically trained industrial arts teachers, right, who really went through and they loved wood shop and they loved teaching other people and helping other people learn. But when we're talking especially about 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds who are kind of towards the pinnacle of their high school experience, you want people with highly specialized training. So you can apply for the job, and then you get hired on by a school, and then there's a sequence of, I think, 6 classes that you have to take through a couple programs in the state of Missouri or in Kansas, depending on which side of state lines you work on, that then would qualify you to earn your full teaching certification without a college degree. That's essentially. Cool. Now then, upward mobility on the pay scale, it still requires ongoing training and education.
Well, that's what I was going to ask too. Speaking of pay scale, I mean, like somebody in my position, I know what I get paid, and it's very well, and I know what a lot of the people in the trade industry get paid. How much of a pay cut is it to go take a position like that, or is it an equal?
Yeah, that would be nice if it was equal, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. That you're finding a lack because you have to do the work, and then they're asking you to leave the work with the better pay.
I think you forgot one thing, and I just want to jump in here. You forgot that you also have to take a pay cut and deal with fucking kids.
That too.
Well, I'm just being real.
Or as you call them, fuck trophies.
Fuck trophies is my favorite term for them.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Sorry.
You're fine. And I think there's a couple things to that point. The first would be that every school district posts on their salary schedule, if you look at a job application, their year 1 no experience salary. So it's misleading, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of schools are trying to sweeten the deal. It's still a bad deal by providing some years of service based on their years of experience in the field, usually at a ratio of about 2 to 1. So if you've got 2 years in the field, we'll move you one step up the ladder. It's not enough. I mean, there's still a 40% deficit between what you could be making in the field versus what you make teaching.
Well, and it's also still tough because, those salary schedules for certificated, staff are all based on, bachelor's plus 8, bachelor's plus 16, master's plus, and then like all the way up to specialists. Like somebody who's going to come in and teach you bricklaying, they're never going to, most likely they're never going to make it to that far right into the schedule because they probably didn't have, they may not even have a bachelor's degree to begin with.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if you're a bricklayer and you're in a competitive union where we want the best of the best and we also want the best laborers to help us, if you're a pair of boots, which is what we call you, you're a pair of boots, you fill a gap.
And babe.
Then the first time that you throw a couple of courses of block, I'll let you finish. The first time that you throw a couple blocks off course and that throws the whole wall off course and all of our guys are upset because we have to fix it, let me tell you, you're not going to have a job in the bricklaying industry. So you're going to become an incompetent teacher.
Yeah, there's I've certainly met a few of those over the years. I've also met people who left the sheet metal workers union to teach because they wanted to be involved with their kids and they wanted to do travel softball, and so the appeal of teaching, of course, is that it's a very structured schedule. You get more time with family. Pension. You're not commuting all over God's green earth for the next job.
You get a pension too.
Pension's not bad.
Let me ask you one. Why? Okay, I have my firm beliefs in this, and I'm going to throw it out there first. I think that kids are getting phones, and that connects them to the internet, and then they're seeing their content producers and their digital influencers and all these people who are doing things on their phone that make them money, and that leads kids with teachers saying you can do anything you want to think I can do this and I don't need to work hard.
Could be an influencer.
Yeah, man. Every kid alive is like, I'm going to be an NFL star, or I'm going to be a YouTuber or a
YouTuber
streamer. Every kid, right? My nephews, my nieces, you name it. But let's be real. That's not real.
No, but I mean, even just hear me out. Like, I think the purpose of the education system, especially when it relates to that, is like, that's still a highly competitive sector of the economy. So what skills are you going to bring to the table? I mean, look at the table we're sitting at today. There's some audio engineering and some work that goes into the production quality and the materials that are here.
A little bit.
Maybe I'm overselling it. Look, but
how many kids love Legos that don't go into bricklaying? How many kids are taught and grow up playing with Legos that don't touch
bricklaying?
Well,
they all become engineers.
Yeah.
Do they?
So maybe.
I'm just. I guess my argument here is I want to know in your perspective what is driving kids away from the trades today.
I think there's more kids going in the trades today than there have been in a while.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're at a weird point in time where the pendulum has just swung back, right? We are today in a skills-based economy.
I agree.
And if you look at higher education enrollment numbers, I think they support that idea. There's private schools closing across the country, public schools really trying to figure out how to make it.
Let's be honest. College has just gotten too expensive.
Yeah.
When you look at it, so
It's very top heavy.
And the thing is, you've got, you can graduate from college, realistically, probably $120,000 in debt, and that's on the cheap side.
Yeah, it's reasonable.
And that's a reasonable.
What state school's like $15,000, $20,000 a year, maybe, right?
Yeah, I'd say $15,000 a year, and then living expenses of
food, this, that, and the other that they have to take loans out because they're barely getting by.
Glad I got smart kids.
Well, you can get the grants and all that stuff. That's good for you. But with that being said, I think that people are looking at like, do I want to do that? Or I can see my dad or my big brother who is driving a brand new truck, has a brand new house, has a
$1,000 truck payment.
Isn't struggling to pay their bills.
F-150.
But they're not struggling to pay their bills. They're getting by. And, like you brought up the teaching's great. If you can get into it and do it and teach others, do that. And I'm not discouraging that one bit, but there is a ceiling for that. Me, a perfect example. I can come in, you said boots on the ground. I was a laborer. I started as a laborer. And now I am way surpassed that and have multiple crews.
King of the laborers.
Wait, what company do you work for?
I actually work for a third-party company out of Alabama, but I am a third-party contract for a local.
He's an inspection agent, so that insurance companies can distinguish between who gets fucked.
He inspects the pipe.
I'm sorry, no, I didn't want to dox your.
No, I have nothing. No, I have nothing to do with insurance or anything.
He inspects pipes.
I'm just saying, no, you're an insurance loophole, so that you're the inspector, but not the person who laid it, not the person who did it.
Absolutely.
You're the suable guy.
But he's responsible for multi-million-dollar catastrophic mistakes.
But our firm is primarily an engineering and inspection, but. Yeah, it's one of those things where you can literally start and move your way up. Mm-hmm. And I've seen people start there and end up CEOs of companies.
Yes. Well, I mean, and that's why the organization I now lead exists. So I'll get into that a little bit. Like, this organization was founded really by the construction community in the late 90s when, we were starting to come out of the housing recession. We were starting to build again. There's more commercial building happening, and they needed qualified students and people to kind of reinvest in the trades at a time when not many people were. Mm-hmm. And so we've had a lot of different maturations over the years, but, our whole goal really is to help students understand that economic mobility that exists within the trades, that you can now in today's age as a laborer, an electrician, a carpenter, a bricklayer, spend your 4 or 5 years in your apprenticeship, 3 if you're a laborer, I think, right?
Yeah, I believe it's.
And then you'll
get
42 articulated credits to a community college. If you want to leverage your experience there, start leading work, be a foreman, a supervisor.
That's bonus on top of your normal pay, by the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, an extra $1 up to, I think, depending on your role, up to like $3 an hour.
Free vehicle and gas and.
Heck yeah.
Can I get your take on something here regarding unions? So. I work for a union subcontractor. It's not a trap. This is actually, I think my boss said it quite beautifully.
It's a trap.
The unions don't care. A lot of people in the union get the bad rap for, we call everyone rats who's not a union. That's not the case. I'd like to throw that out right now. And I'll tell everyone what a rat is by definition by my boss, and I think it's quite correct. It's someone who comes in, pays a group of illegals or people who have not gone through the skills training that are definitely willing to pay cash per day, and we're hurting our own trades by letting this work reflect us. That's a rat. If you're a non-union or a union company that pays your employees well and you're doing right by your workers and you're doing right by the American method, then we don't have a fucking qualm with you.
I don't think all unions agree with that, but
you're never going to get everyone to agree with that.
No, but I would say most probably don't agree with that.
And here's what I'll tell you. That's my bricklayer boss, who I also agree with. If you're doing right as a non-union company by American people, I don't give a shit.
Well, and I'm gonna take this back to a point you made earlier about putting young people on jobs. The non-union contractors have the ability to be much more agile and accommodating to young people on job sites.
Interesting.
TempCon Incorporated is a fantastic example. When I was at Herndon Career Center as a school counselor there, we started developing a mutual partnership to send. 1 year it was 15, and then they went, ooh, that was too much. But 5 students a year on paid internship program with them. We would do some check-in, get some feedback. They would earn credit towards high school graduation, but would basically be released for about 20 hours a week of paid work. Yeah. And so they were building Amazon distribution centers, Whataburgers. They were out at CPKC Stadium. I mean, they were doing the real deal installation, fabrication.
That's good.
Service.
That's fan-fucking-tastic.
Which is awesome. But what is the... I guess the insurance ramifications of that, because the trades is a dangerous job, and not so much. I mean, it's dangerous on the job, but a lot of times people don't factor in the public is even more danger. Getting to the job site, working on roadsides, all this other stuff, is a lot of the accidents involve the public. And, if something were to happen to a high schooler, I mean, it would make everything go to shit. Companies would probably lose their license, go bankrupt.
No, so both the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri have issued state level kind of public policy documents, and it really relates to kind of the technical term for how those individuals are coded in their books.
Okay.
Are they an intern? Is this an internship? Are they an apprentice, or is this a pre-apprenticeship? Because depending on their classification, then they can be covered under workman's comp insurances.
Okay, good. Which is awesome. I'm glad that the legislation's even gone that far to protect the workers and the companies that are trying to help people get into these positions.
Yeah.
With current geopolitics,
politics?
No, I don't want to dive into politics here. It's not at all where I want to go.
Politics.
Fuck you, Brian.
Smacked that mic out of my way.
With the current geopolitical climate, something that I've tried to remind. I've been also I've partaken in shows and trade shows where I am trying to help young people respect and understand why we exist, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to know your opinion on there's a disconnect with young people and understanding that there's a physicality of requiring us to build things here for our data centers, the things that are under massive operation right now. DeSoto, Kansas is one, for example.
Yeah, I've been out to the Meta Facebook data center twice. I mean, incredible.
We bid on it. Lots of those kinds of things. Those have to be here for us to have influencers. Mm-hmm. How do you relate and how do you connect to these young people when you have someone who doesn't understand that? How do you break through?
I'm losing a little bit of the thread of that question.
How do you break through to young people who don't see a value in trades?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is just saying like everything you do is in the built environment, right? There is a lot of intentionality to everything that we see and view in city planning and development. You take downtown Kansas City 30 years ago, and it was a ghost town, right? I mean, there was nothing there. And over the last 30 years, slow and steady, like you're starting to see an increase in residential density downtown, which increases safety. You're starting to see, some more businesses moving downtown. And so that's kind of the central Kansas City region. But even in Lee Summit, where we're sitting right now, there's thousands of acres of Mormon land up for sale, essentially, right? I'm also on the Lee Summit Parks Board, so I know, at least, and what I can say is, like, the city is in very proactive negotiations with that plot of land to find out, like, okay, where are we going to put new city facilities at? Where do we need, a firehouse, a police station?
Infrastructure.
Yeah. Where are we putting parks? Because parks are an important part and a component of the built environment. So the reality is everything we touch and do is part of the built environment. Yep. It's just, how do you want to interface with it? How do you interact with it?
It's just really funny as a part, like, and I'm gonna absolutely support everything that's been said previously, and we touched on it before, which is this emphasis on the only way you're going to make a positive effect is if you need to go to college. You got to get a degree. And I'm just telling you, it's maybe that's. It took me going to work for a really, really big company. Like, I worked for Sprint right out of college, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I knew what I did, and I knew there were people that did sales, and there were people that did wireless, there were people that like planned towers. But it's like that's 5 or 6 roles, right? That was a company that had like 3,000 different job codes and job positions. And what the unique part of it, and it did open my brain in a way to this, like, white collar versus blue collar trades versus knowledge worker type thing, which is like, man, there's so many places, there are so many different kinds of roles that make this thing go that are nothing close to what I do.
Can I give you a really good example of that?
Yeah, please.
And I think first I would say that the terminology needs to not be you should go to college, but why are you going to college, right? Like it needs to be a purpose driven decision. Sure. That's why I dropped out. I didn't know what I was doing. Then I got a degree in psychology because it was unmitigated therapy, right? Like, I probably just needed therapy, but instead, like, I'm a guy.
You get to talk through it yourself, man.
Yeah, I'm just going to figure this shit out on my own, man. Yeah. Yeah. What motivates people? I'll read this fucking textbook. Let's figure it out.
It motivated me.
But you know, there's this cross section in construction, because they're very similar, right? Like, they have roles for everything. But some of the hard to find roles are jobs that fuse the need for college and the need for technical ability. I know a really large steel erection company right now. Yes, I did say erection. I know somebody wanted to laugh.
That's hot, man.
So,
Randy's too stupid to help himself. He's a
I had
ditch
to laugh.
digger. Sorry.
regardless, like talking about erections.
He's a ditch digger, so that's all they talk about is erection.
All I heard was boner.
Yeah. They don't know the non-sexual.
You had a big steel boner. Continue. Sorry to interrupt you.
You know, there's a large steel erection company, and they cannot find qualified estimators.
Yeah.
Because estimators is a business job, right? Like, you need to understand how to bid a job so the company doesn't lose money. You need to understand the financial aspect of it. But the requirement on the other end is you need to have some baseline knowledge about structural steel. How many people go to school and study business and care about structural steel?
And let me tell you, it's a very
They're
odd
called
dichotomy.
engineers and they don't study business.
And can I address what you just said at that level?
No.
It is that your qualified, represented, college-bound kids learn about steel, metallurgy, in a classroom.
Yeah.
They learn to weld the 3 different types, TIG, MIG, and stick, for 38 seconds apiece, each running a 2-inch bead on a bullshit coupon to get it done. And that allows any engineer to go get a PE and then be certified to inspect welds by definition. That's what we've given them.
You don't think they're qualified after those 3 minutes?
I don't believe you learn to swim online.
I'm setting you up like you set everybody else
So,
up.
I don't know what my qualified as far as welds go, but I mean, a few OQs, and technically I can say if it's good or bad.
but I go back to insurance and construction, because this is one of my biggest struggles, is how they qualify a competent person or a qualified inspector or a whatever you want to call it in whatever division of the 50 specs we've got. I struggle with that every time.
Well, let me ask you this. You went to college, and did you think that you would be... Did it have anything to do with putting bids together? Or was there a pivot in your career where you had to adjust to accommodate for these type of...
I hated writing reports. I hated getting a 10% of a project where I had no idea what was going on before, and I was to check this thing and then get done. I hated that.
Yeah.
So I got out of it.
And pivoted more towards... I mean, you made a change.
I made a change. And with that, I go back to what is qualified. Qualified is not someone who went to school for 4 years. It's not someone who learns to weld for 2,000 hours. It's someone who's good at what they're doing.
It could be. It could be. That's just not the only criteria.
Correct. I'm not making an absolute.
Let's just go ahead and say it's like.
Goddamn.
You could find somebody that's been formally trained at a technical education center that knows their shit and is great.
I got to cover my liberal technical friends over here.
Who? Me?
Yeah,
Not
Brian
liberal,
over here.
dude.
So, let me ask you a different question.
Hold on. I want to touch something.
Yeah,
My biggest concern is, from a personal standpoint, is I could probably go make money elsewhere and do better. I could probably fill these spots that you're talking about. My problem is I do well where I'm at. And with the way companies are and the way bids work and everything, I may leave where I'm at now, which is comfortable, go to something a little better, but then be unemployed 2 weeks from then. So I think another thing in the trades industry is that you become complacent because you know that you have a spot where you're at.
Got a spot.
Mm-hmm.
Once you jump ship, a lot of, even if you do it in the right way, construction is very, very good at blackballing people.
I know that you don't know this probably, but the professional world is no different than that.
Oh, I know it is. No, I know.
Especially depending on what domain of technical knowledge you're in.
Absolutely.
Because I can tell you what I do for the health system. I know like 80% of the people in Ken-Zee that do it.
Yeah.
And just because, like, I mean, if you're going to a vendor's dog and pony show, the same fucking people are from Cerner and Garmin and Sprint, and they're all going to be there. And so, I mean, just like it's a networking thing, right? Like I'd really, if I lose my job, I could probably maybe bounce to a different health system. I could bounce to different places that use this certain software. But the thing is, if I go to a trade show or a demo and I make an ass out of myself, I can blackball myself just as well as you could in that.
Oh yeah.
Same shit, man.
Let me
Because when you get specialized, it's always the world always like really contracts down and minuscule when you're real specialized.
Can I try to tie what
It almost
you guys
becomes incest in a way because it's all the same people just intermingling.
I worked
at
with
the
these
point.
people 10 years, and then 20 years later, the same dude's on my team. He's been 3 other places since then, and we can walk right lockstep and start over again.
Let me tie what you guys are in with a question that I think will directly relate to them.
Okay.
You guys are talking about okay. I have a college experience. I also am now in the non-college world, but I'm a failed bricklayer. I'm a failed bricklayer, whatever you want to call me.
Bricklayer?
And bricklayer. And what I mean by that is, my boss realized that my specialty wasn't putting the Legos together, and that I knew how to put the Legos together, but I shouldn't be holding a trowel in my hand. I should be clicking a keyboard.
You have more to offer.
So by definition, I'm an estimator. I'm here talking to you now. And what you said hit home. Should every college person that is involved in construction in an engineering or whatever aspect, architectural field, etc., civil, whatever it is, whatever you're going towards, should they spend time in the field to understand the real world applications of what they're doing?
I think so. And I think there are some companies really trying to do that with some intentionality. I was talking to Bob, the training coordinator over at the Ironworkers Local 10 the other day, and they do a summer program every year with students who are in the KU Architecture and Design program. And so they bring them in, and they know, like, they're not changing the world for them. They're not getting a ton of field experience, but they're at least going to have to understand a little bit about structural steel erection, some of the safety concerns that need to be.
You said erection again.
Yeah. Well, it's industry standard, man. I always
make sure Randers. I got to make sure Randers is okay.
Let me go ahead and do you.
I'm just thinking once they hit 40, is their issues with their performances.
I got a question for you, Nate. If you're in a bar fight, who do you want backing you in all the trades? Which trade do you want backing your ass? And if you're in a bar fight,
now we're talking
he's trying
erections and backing your ass.
He asked trap questions, man.
Somehow here.
Here it is. Gotcha, baby. Who do you want backing you in a bar fight?
Does the bricklayer have a brick in their hand?
I'll tell you right now, a bricklayer's a tough motherfucker.
Does a pipe fitter have a large section of pipe in there?
Well, look.
Hell no. Look at this guy over here.
Yeah.
Tiny pipe.
If you want big pipe, you got to go plumbers.
He's
man.
pretty boy, dude.
The pipe fitters. That's all interior
Like to
stuff.
hear that.
What's up?
No.
Who's backing you in a bar fight, Nate?
Pretty boy with your nose
I think
ring.
I'd go with bricklayers, honestly. Those are some rugged dudes.
They're all pussies.
You don't have
we
to
were
kiss
slinging
his ass.
42-inch pipes,
I've met
20,000
them all.
pounds apiece.
I can't wait for all the bricklayers to come onto this podcast, and it's just going to be a physical violence instead of a
They'll
podcast.
they'll just stare
It's
at
gonna be
him
a
the whole
wrestling
time.
session.
Yeah. You need to put a disclaimer
Assert
out there
dominance.
that I am a partner with every single union trade.
Yeah, no, and
I love all the
fantastic
trades.
people.
So-
take students there.
They're all the best. They're fantastic.
let me take that one right there. That comment. There's fantastic people, all the trades.
I'm going to get an email where he says, by the way, can you bleep this out? And our whole episode's just going to be beep, beep, beep. Hey, by the way, beep, 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 beep.
Well, I hope you're a decent producer.
It's decent.
All these decent
Yeah,
trades, all these
formal
decent
training.
people, etc. Can you verbose your opinion on union, non-union? I kind of gave mine earlier. We don't care about union, non-union.
I didn't really finish that, I guess, because I talked about how agile and nimble non-union contractors are. You know, my job, and this is going to be walking the political line, because we are an anomalous organization in that the construction community from both union and non-union and professional service contractors all come together to support our mission. So my party line is always what's best for the student. Because not every kid wants to go into the union trades, because the union trades, better benefits, better pension, collective bargaining's great. Man, the pay right now for electricians and plumbers is out of this world good.
Pretty good. 6 figures pretty quick, dude.
Yeah. But I had a student a number of years ago who went to work for one of the largest general contractors in Kansas City. They were working on the Lowe's Hotel when it was going up. He hated it. He was done in 6 months. And so we had a really good conversation afterwards. Like, man, the benefits were good. The pay was great. Like, what was the turning point for you?
Yeah.
And he just said, he's like, yeah, I could make more money, but I was bored. Because all he did on that job was put a beam in, put a beam in, put a beam in, move up to the next floor,
put a beam in.
Beam, beam, beam. And so he went back to design and remodeling in the residential sector where you're on a different job site every day and you're
different shit all the time, dude.
I've got a perfect story for that. I was laid off of a job going into winter. I called around because I wasn't ready to quit working that year, and they said, well, can you be here tomorrow? I said, no, absolutely not. It's a 40-hour drive. So they said, well, we can't use you. I get a call 2 weeks later. They said, hey, can you be here in 3 days? I said, yeah, I can make that work. It was all the way on the East Coast. Got on the jobs. They said, we've had 4 people quit in the last 3 weeks. They can't hack it. I'm like, oh, fuck. I can't wait to see what this is.
Because I'm not going to hack it.
Right? I'm a laborer.
I produce sound. It's terrible.
My name's Randy. Hold my beer. Watch this.
At the time, I'm a laborer. I get out there. The easiest fucking job I've ever had in my life. It was for a prefab company that was making the welds and bends on site, and they were welding, and I was on fire watch. And then when we backfilled it, I ran a remote control bow mag that compacted the soil. That's all I did, and got paid really well for it.
Yeah.
I think the problem was they got bored.
Yeah.
I'm traveling 40 hours away from home. I'm there to work. I don't care how boring it is.
So it's funny though, because I mean, this is an abstraction I think you could lift off the top of the industry you're talking about and lay it on almost anything.
Yeah.
Any skilled, not even laborers, knowledge workers, doesn't matter. There are people that are perfectly content with going into their office, having a job, having work. We've got work to do, but it's what you said. It's like beam, 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 beam. They can just go on autopilot, throw some headphones on, and do that for the rest of their career. And
variety is the spice.
And then there are people that are like, if I have to do that, I'm gonna want to open a vein.
I knew it was temporary. If I had to do that for a year, oh hell no. I knew it was going to be a 3 to 4 months.
I struggle with that at my job. And it's going to be worse because we merged with an organization.
I couldn't do what you do.
We merged with an org though that's very, very like vertical domain oriented, and we're very flat. Like I wear 5, 6, 8, 10 hats every day, cover a lot of different stuff, and our peers that we're getting ready to join with, it's like, well, I do this.
What else?
That's it. And like, it's part of me is like, should I be worried?
Look, I deal with the engineers so that people don't have to. What the hell is wrong with you?
But it's this weird thing where I mean, it's a sense of like unease because I'm going into an environment where it's like, well, we only really want you to do 1 or 2 things and be good, and I'm like, well, I'm good at 20 things. Like what? What I'm sincerely hoping is that the things they have me do are things that I'm entertained by at all. Because some of the shit, and it's just like any job.
Yeah,
it's a
stuff you love.
I think it's like 70% administrative, 30% that has to do exactly with what your role is specifically. Yeah. And I love the 30%. I don't always love the 70%.
Well, and this might be a little tangential. I'm going to go back even to my introduction because we just started talking.
Sure.
But like you asked about my background and like how have you done these different things, and it's that. It's getting a job, figuring out what it is in that career that I really enjoyed, and then trying to make it as much of my job as I possibly can.
Absolutely.
Right? And so like I started in community mental health. I hated Medicaid billing. It sounded like a really repressive system. It still is. Mm-hmm. They made some job classification changes that took away my flexibility. And so I was like, well, but I love working with people. I like motivating people. I like helping people achieve their goals. What can I do that's more proactive and more focused on those kind of core components of what I really love about my job?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going back to school to get a master's in counseling because what you do with a psychology degree is you double down on education and triple down on student loan debt.
Yeah. Might as well.
You should be a psychologist or a teacher.
Well, that'd be even worse, even more, right? And so I got into school counseling and found it like really, it was more proactive. I got to work with more students. I got to do more preventative programming. You know, it's kind of a 3-tiered system where you're working with like social and emotional health and academic issues and career related kind of programming. And in my time at East High School in the Kansas City Public School District, there was a moment where we had gotten this really massive federal school improvement grant, and so we were starting to really dive into this career pathway, career academy work that has really been kind of in vogue in schools lately.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was like, man, I really love career planning, and it goes back to me dropping out of college, not knowing what I wanted to do. And so like career planning is something I latched onto. And I started partnering with the organization that I now lead, just organically as like, hey, you're an extension of my career programming. I'm coming to your events with students. They need the experience and exposure.
So that's what a school counselor does. I didn't ever know that.
Yeah, we can talk about that all day. School counseling might be one of the most misunderstood professions in the school system.
Talk about it, man.
Wait, you're supposed to help kids?
Yeah, you help?
A lot of them.
Weird.
Talk about it, man.
Yeah, so, you know, school counseling is a profession. You know, I think the hard part is that if a school counselor is doing their job right, 70% of what they do is really hidden behind confidentiality, and a lot of people don't know what's happening, right? Like, and so counselors are helpers, right? If you, has anybody ever taken the DISC management assessment? Like, are you driven? Are you supportive?
Oh, yeah. I know exactly. I know exactly.
Counselors are support people almost to a T. Most teachers are too. And so 70% of it's confidential, or you're helping kids, or you're building programs that support the school as a whole, or you're doing other duties as assigned. But at its core, 25% of a school counselor's time should be spent in kind of tier 1, full school body instructional curricular material to help support academic growth, so study skills, test prep, things like that, depending on the age group and demographic. Social emotional health, so how do you get along with other people? How do you engage in conflict resolution? And then the career awareness piece. And for better or worse, right now, the career awareness piece is coming back, but there's such a mental health crisis that I think school counselors get pigenholed a lot into.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's because we talked a little bit about social emotional learning. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel about that? And because I always have this idea, and this is all dovetailed off of me reading a couple books by an author named Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff called "The Coddling of the American Mind." Really, and it's not a denigration. It's not a complete sellout of social media. It's not social media. That's not the only thing. It's screens. What do you think this exposure, and not only that, like a lot of exposure, but a lot of early exposure, what is that doing to students in our school system's emotional mental health state? What's it doing?
Social media in particular.
Screen time, computers, devices, like the loss of this. You and me doing this.
Yeah, there's no latchkey kids anymore, right? Like the kids aren't running around outside, going down to their neighbor's house without asking, like walking in the back door, grabbing a Capri Sun out of the fridge before you go. Even introduce your presence, but. I think it's a sad loss, that interpersonal connection, and I think it really goes to our ability to solve conflict and relate to other people where they stand. I think there's a reason schools are starting to move into policies where cell phones are actually going to be banned during instructional time.
I'm happy
in a lot of districts. That. Yeah, I mean, me too, right? That. Like, you don't need your phone. And they're like, well, what happens if there's an emergency? You call the school like we did for 60 years.
You call the office, they'll get you out of class. I promise it'll happen.
We still have PA systems.
We do that. Okay. We still do that. I get my kids out of class.
Look what happened in 1958 in the last school fire, for example. They got everyone out.
Yeah. But, social media in particular is pretty toxic.
Always throwbacks.
Because even back then, like if you were being bullied, when you are home and the door shuts, you no longer have any contact or association with that people. Yeah. There's nobody there, right? You have that sense of separation.
Safety too, safety.
But that sense of separation and safety is removed when there is 24/7 access between you and a group of immature peers.
Yeah. And not only your peers, but your peers in the web around all them fucking thousands of people around them, dude.
That leads me into a good one here. Is the problem social media?
Yeah, I don't think social media by itself is a problem, right? The reality is it's the content that people share on social media. We're back to the gun argument, right? The gun didn't kill the person. The person that's holding the gun did it. Because, I mean, have you guys ever shared your dirty laundry, your family issues, your problems with kids on social media, or do you only put lipstick on the happiest fleeting moments of your life and share it?
I don't treat it that way, but I totally understand what you mean.
That's what a lot of people do.
It's
right?
it's a curated experience.
Look,
right?
I get my joy on social media by trolling Chiefs haters and trolling political content because their hate fuels me.
I want to see you troll his political.
I absolutely love the tears of haters is one of the greatest things.
Yeah.
One thing I've seen lately, and I'm not talking about like people breaking down from like, you know, political or this or that. I've seen people literally breaking down on the internet, and they are posting it live, like, and updates and this, like, oh, I don't know if they're looking for sympathy, if they think it's a good thing that they're doing it. Like,
I don't know, but people like to watch train wrecks, man.
People do, and that's the bad thing. But like,
typically the ones with women and children first.
Well, but here's what we do psychologically. You put yourself in that position. You're watching it, and like your life could be a total shit show, right? But at least it's not that bad. Well,
I ain't there.
It's bad, but it's not that bad. So we make this downward social comparison to elevate ourselves.
I just go to Walmart for that.
Psychologically healthy, but it's what we do, and it's natural.
Just go to Walmart and Tudor and Scruggs. It works the same.
I miss 24-hour Walmart.
Right?
Go to the one at Kansas City, I guess. The one that's.
Are they still 24 hours?
It wouldn't surprise me.
I think all of them got away from 24 hours.
I just know that that has, but between the Raytown Walmart and the one on Blue Ridge Mall spot, it's like the most police calls of anywhere.
People in Lee Summit think the Walmart here is dangerous.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh come on, hey, come on. I'm from Independence. Let's be real. Let's be real.
I work a block from one of my job sites is a block from the
that's
Blue Ridge
the Independence one,
and it's always. You hear the sirens, and the first place you check is the Walmart.
Can you imagine doing the loss prevention in that store? Oh, seriously, that's
it sounds terrible.
Let's just put a cop in there, 2-3 cops in there, and
So one of my first jobs in Kansas City was at Swope Health Services. They're a community mental health provider off Blue Parkway.
Cleaver, right?
And so I worked with clients all across Kansas City and in the hood. And I'm a guy from rural upstate Missouri. And so I get in, and I never thought about it, but like I had this elderly client who lived like 23rd and Denver, Indiana, like kind of northeast a little bit. It's generally not a safe neighborhood. I never felt unsafe. One, I think it helps that I'm a large man. But two, I think like people in the community know you're there to help them.
Lovable.
Yeah, lovable. But people in the community know you're there to help them, right? They know that like
there's no trust issues there.
Yeah, and I'm not there looking for bad.
Can I ask you a question on that? And I'm going to let you get right back into it. I am a firm believer actions speak louder than words, and I feel like that in many unsafe, I'm making air quotes for the people listening, unsafe communities. Randy's mom, depending on the week. But
she's a great
I feel like a lot of people are so distracted by the unsafe communities of the media. And if you go there and you're a good person trying to do good, you're not going to get hurt. Kind of like you said. Like, I want to make that very clear.
I mean, I don't think it's an absolute. There's a real.
There's never an absolute.
No. I agree with what you're saying, but I'm only presenting what I'm saying because I know I work with. I'm not going to make pejoratives, Johnson County types, who I tell them that like my wife and I and my kids, we went down to BKS. It's in Brookside, dude. And I have coworkers who are like, "You go down there without a gun?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do
sit on the
all
patio.
the time." And you know what? I've been going there for like 8 years, and there's been like one serious crime in that neighborhood. The guy that got shot, John Brady, which is a shame. But it's like that is the only thing that's ever happened negatively. And
that location is like an anomaly though, because you literally cross through almost a time warp or a dimension to where there's a hard line.
Like I drive down. That would be. what is it?
63rd?
Street. Yeah, 63rd Street there. And there's bus stops. There's all kinds of places where people that are in the neighborhood are walking around. And it's not all one. It's not all one ethnic demographic.
No.
I see white people. I see African American people. I see Latino people. I see Asian people. I see all kinds. And I don't ever see fights. I don't ever see any of that. No. It's a pretty diverse cultural place. And it always cracks me up because it's like one bad thing has happened there in all the years we've been there. And to my coworker, the Johnson County guy, he's like, that's enough that he won't. He's told me many times he would never even drive with locked doors in that neighborhood, and he's got a gun in his glove box if he had his kids and his wife with him.
Good. Fuck him.
And I'm
let
like,
him
dude,
live in
really?
his bigger house. Let him put a bowling alley in it.
It's not like that. It's not even like that. He's just like
in
wildest thing, man.
Tell him that in high school I saw a guy get stabbed in a bowling alley parking lot, so he should never go there. Put a bowling alley in his house.
He grew
go
up,
the Joco route, and
he's built his presuppositions.
If you're going to be scared to go out anywhere because of one incident isolated.
Oh, and the better one is I told him that I walked from...
It's dumb.
I walked from 18th Street and Holmes, which is where CBU was at. I walked... This is it. I walked from there to 18th and Charlotte, which is where Torn Label is. And he's like, "Are you kidding me, dude?
That's the crossroads, dude.
You're going to get killed. You're going to get killed there." Yeah. And I'm like, "Dude, you got to get out of."
I've worked in some of the quote unquote worst neighborhoods, and honestly, you've had the people that'll give you some attitude and shit from a contractor standpoint. Dude, we're not here to shut you off.
I'm just here to do
anything
job,
I see, I don't give a shit about. I'm just here doing my job. Oh yeah, that's cool. Do what you got to do.
You know what I want to encourage everyone on this podcast to do? Anytime you find one of these crazies that doesn't understand what it is, encourage it. Tell them, you know what? I'm fucking wild. I walk around the crossroads without a gun. And just tell them, don't come because we don't want your fucking kind around here. We don't. The people that come around with the mentality of, I'm in the crossroads, I gotta carry a gun.
It's a victim mentality.
That's a fucking problem.
Just be a person. Just be a person.
That's a problem.
I thought the crossroads was kind of uppity.
I'm just saying, if you find someone who thinks you're in an area that's rough and they have an issue with it, fucking tell them all the worst possible.
I always think about we at Swope Park. We used to play disc at Swope.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I would tell people, I'm gonna go play League tonight. Tuesday night, I'm gonna go play League at Swope, and they're like, "Dude, do you feel safe putting your car down there?"
One big issue, right?
Yeah.
One guy gets shot in a tournament.
Well, I mean, some
it might have been because Tech 9 referenced
some dead horses in the shit. I mean, there's
with their nuts in their neck,
but the burned out cars in the middle of 11's fairway.
Look, you can't legally sell horse meat in the state of Missouri. Like I think they just
no. Okay, so I do want to tell one funny anecdotal story that's just based off this about the bad neighborhood thing, because Cliff Drive, there's a reservoir. It's Kessler Park in Kansas City. This is many years ago when we had just started playing. You weren't around yet, and but my wife would always go out and play. She loved to play, and the hole one at Cliff, very cleared out. Right, very cleared out. Very much not a sketchy situation at all. Before it got cleaned out and cleaned up, hole one, you teed off the road, and you threw through a very, very dubiously defined gap to get out to the open to try to get to the hole. And my wife yanked it, like big time yank over to the right, and it went into some shit, like into some hairy brush up to here. And this was our first example of doing this, is that we went down to find it. Of course, we're going to just elbow in and find it, and we do find it. Within 5 feet of that Frisbee, we saw 2 disposed of full toilets that were in the ditch, and between the 2 toilets were a full cow's foot from the knee down to the hoof. How do you find this shit? What is it? Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go back to something we said a minute ago, just about media. Media to me is the inverse of social media, right? Like on social media, it's positivity and then trolls, right? So you only share personally, you only share the positive. Mainstream media is their product is doom and gloom, right? They
catastrophize.
They sell fear.
They sell clicks.
Oh, well, fear sells clicks.
Yeah,
Though.
Fear sells clicks, but they sell. But love can sell clicks sometimes. But what sells the most clicks is fear.
Catastrophizing, right?
Yeah.
So I did want to bring it back to what you do and everything. My biggest hurdle.
What he does, or everything.
Well, a little bit of everything. My biggest hurdle when it comes to getting people interested in potentially working in the trades industry is that they bail the second you tell them the hours that you may potentially be working, and the temperature you may be working, and the tasks you may be working. Is there a way to overcome that? Because, I mean, the pay is good, but you're also working a full-time job and a part-time job to get that pay.
Well, I got to work in my house, and it's cold in my basement.
We're going to move beyond that dumbass comment before anyone gets hit in the face.
I need a space heater down there.
We'll get you a little blankie.
Jason said when he said too many people say things without getting punched in the face? Because I'm within reach, bitch.
And I think that is where the education system needs to do a better job coming in, and they're trying to. That's something that we really focus on is trying to help students understand how to evaluate like working conditions as part of that compensation package. Sure. It's like you're getting paid really well. Here's the reality of that: you're going to work 9 months out of the year. You're going to work 60 hours a week for those 9 months, and then we're going to give you 3 months totally off.
Who gets 3 months off?
Well, I mean.
Don't say bricklayers. We're working in the indoors right now.
You're a unicorn, bro.
I'll tell you right now.
Boilermakers.
There you go.
Boilermakers do. They'll work a full year in 6 months, and then
a lot of trades though can find inside and outside work depending on what they do.
But no, like when I started pipelining and stuff, we would work 100-hour weeks for 8 months out of the year and 4 months off.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'd make six figures in those 6 months, and then everything else bonus after that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's really just about that transparency. I mean, I talked to there's a guy who used to play a New Players League down in Pleasant Hill, disc golf. He is an old guy, brought his son or grandson with him. He is a retired iron worker, and he'd always complain about the apprentices who wouldn't climb a ladder. Like, how are you going to be an iron worker if you can't climb a ladder?
Climb a fucking ladder.
Like, what are we doing here? And so it's like, I think that comes down to just the schooling before he gets there, and then the trades do a pretty good job vetting it, and so I don't know if that happens on the field, but maybe there just needs to be some more awareness brought to working conditions.
Well, it's just from my perspective. I think the messaging is so unique. You know what I mean? Because if it's really we're just talking about it as a salary thing. I don't think it's so easy. I didn't learn that until I had seen that in this big tech company there were literally over 2,000 different roles, and all of them had something to do with, and they didn't cross disciplines, right? It was like, well, if you do this, that's what you do. You don't do anything else, and people would do that their entire careers, and it's very interesting because with my mentality now about it goes right along with what you said, which is, take that first gig. What do I love about it? And because if I love it, I'm probably good at it. Look, how can I? And then it becomes like bringing value. How do we bring value? And you find the other roles you go into. It reminds me almost what you said, where your boss is like, hey, man, not a bad bricklayer, but you know what? You know how to do all this computer punch and key stuff too.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of what I did, which is where the guy who was my lead, like my technical lead, was like, hey, man, you're doing a great job. You're really good at this job. You're going to get bored doing this job in about a year because you've already done pretty much all you can do. You've learned the patterns. You've learned the processes. If you want to do this forever, you can, but it's going to be that over and over again. So how about we start fixing big problems as opposed to fixing single individual problems? And I'm like, I like that. Like, how do
Sounds like a better puzzle.
How do I keep moving up? How do we keep?
Mine was I'm down here in a hole sweating to death, and I'm like, that fucker behind me that hasn't done anything but watch me all day. He gets paid that much. Yeah. Sign me up.
Yeah. Now you sit in the truck with your boots on
and send really, really poorly spelled text messages.
Are you ready? R-E-D-Y.
He says he's super intelligent. I'm questioning.
Driving.
I'm just kidding.
Have you ever tried to do this all at once.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
Yeah, it was
Texting
the 90s
and-
with MapQuest.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm changing my CD, and I got my printed directions. And
I think I would argue that the intelligent people just learned to text those people
I'm-
back after they got where they were going.
I'm at my house. I got my 3 monitors in front of me. It's cold. My space heater's going.
We'll have that. Ken-Zee, final thoughts?
Oh boy! All right, final thoughts on this one.
boy.
Just
I think it comes down. All right, I'm gonna sum it up with one word: appreciation. And the reason I say that is I know a lot of people with 4-year degrees who can't tell the difference between Phillips and Flathead, and I've helped them in their lives, and that's fine. I don't mind helping them. I definitely cast judgment in my own opinion, but I also try to put myself in their shoes, and I try to think about where they've been, and I come back to that 90s dad. I'm a 1990s child, and I've got a dad who I shared this anecdotal story with Randy, but I remember it vividly, and it was I kind of backtalked my dad about his toolbox, and basically my dad said, "You don't like my toolbox? Go fucking build your own." And he walked away. And I will not lie to you, I remember every moment, and I didn't cry, I didn't break down. I had this realization of, fuck, I don't know how to build my own toolbox, and my dad just took the toolbox I was a part of away. And then my dad came back, and he did the typical 1990s. I'm going to let you know that you're fucking wrong. Now, boy, let's go show you how to build a toolbox. We're going to show you, and you're going to learn it. You're going to drill the holes. You're going to countersink them. You're going to paint it. You're going to make it look right. You're going to appreciate what it makes a toolbox in effort. Not just know how, you're smart.
Sure.
Not just, okay, there's a saw, I think I get what happens here, but appreciation of both understanding what it takes to get to a design, building the design with your hands, not just being able to design something and never have an appreciation for where it is. And going back to, I think the real struggle is parenting and a disassociation with parents and teaching in their own children.
well, maybe we should support teaching, but yeah.
I definitely
probably be better.
Don't misunderstand. I think we should support teaching all day long. Don't get me wrong, but I definitely think there's a disconnect with some of the parents out there now that have no idea what the fuck. Like, if your kid comes home with algebra homework and you're confused, that's one thing. But if your kid comes home and says, "What's the difference between a Flathead and a Phillips?" and you can't answer it, I start to appreciate. I don't want to go, fuck these people that don't know it. I want to go, hey, Dad, thank you for showing me how it is to build a wall in real life. Thank you, Dad, for showing me what it's like to put tile on a fucking wall, on a floor. Thank you, Dad, for showing me.
I want to read. I got a thought for you.
And don't get me wrong, I grew up in a time with shop class and all that. I went through it. But I truly, with this episode, I think back and I laugh because everyone's going to want a political stance from me. Everyone's going to want an opinionation on union, non-union. And what I'm sitting here saying is thank you, Dad, because this is bullshit. My dad taught me every bit of the trades I know, and he's not a fucking skilled tradesman.
Just a guy.
He's a guy who learned. He's a guy who busted his ass. He's a guy who fucked up many a project and then sold that house, so now it's not our problem. But he's a guy who learned by doing.
Yeah.
So, my final thought. You've influenced my.
Sorry, that was very
no.
long.
You've influenced. You've influenced.
Sorry.
You've influenced my final thought, and you actually influenced me, and then you talked about it, and I forgot it, and then you kept coming back to it, and I remembered it. So I have a reading assignment for you. Are you prepared for a reading assignment? Because you've drawn out the message of this particular book that I love, and I think if kids could stomach to read it, it is a little bit of a dense read. Are you familiar? I'm pretty sure you probably are. Have you ever heard of the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
No.
Okay. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance it's a philosophical book. Okay, it really is.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you the 30,000 foot level abstract view real quick, and it maybe a minute or two. But the point is, it's a father and a son go on a cross-country motorcycle trip.
Yeah.
Okay? They want to go visit. They want to go see. And it's not about specific landmarks. It's really not about that. It's about a father spending time with his son. Okay? And they go with a couple. So it's the couple, and then the father and son are on their bikes. And there's all kinds of, storylines, where they go, what they do. But the top level abstract thought of this book is that this is back, I want to say 40s or 50s. Does that sound right?
It's older.
Chronologically, even at 30s or 40s. So motorcycles were very simple. They're very simple machines, right? Gas combustible engines. So you had, they draw a dichotomy between the two people, the couple and the father and son. And the couple they romanticize the idea of the motorcycle. They're on the trip. All they're really doing is experiencing everything that's coming at them. They have no qualms if the bike is a problem or maintenance problem. They just take it to a shop if they can find a shop, and they just get right back on and they keep riding. And the importance in the journey for them is the journey. It's experiencing all these things. Now, the father and son, the father is a competent motorcycle mechanic. Okay, he has learned over the trip they're taking. Maybe the fuel's too lean. Maybe this needs to be adjusted. And he knows how to fix almost everything that happens. So it draws this dichotomy between the romanticized notion of what the trip is and the realistic version of what you're doing and what needs to be done to continue it. And it draws this very, very interesting contrast, which I think pulls out to the conversation we're having, which is there are people that I want to be a fucking engineer because I've heard all these cool things about being an engineer. And then there's the person next to them that's like, well, I really love building things and putting all this together, and that's why I love being an engineer. And I honestly, I may fall on one side of that, and I'm not going to say which one I do. But I think that those are two very, very valid approaches to life, and one isn't better than the other.
Yeah.
So we have people that
It takes all types.
it does. It takes all. That's my grandpa. My grandpa
I
used to
wanted
say.
jump in on that.
That's a pillar of school counseling is respect for all work.
It takes all kinds, man.
Yep.
It takes all kinds. And I probably read that book a dozen times. And almost the first 10 times, I always identified with the guy who could fix his own bike. Almost every time. And then I fucked up and I read Leela, the next one, in there was sequel to it, and then I went back and reread Zen and the Art, and I'm like, I kind of identify with the romanticized.
Yeah, maybe I'm a romantic now.
Well, ignorance. Well, no, there's an ignorance is bliss element to it, because I'm just living in the experience. Let them fix the bike for me. I'm going to get right back on that bike, and the experience it's given me, I'm going to continue it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Either way is fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my final thought. Thanks for coming.
That's
Thanks for
good.
coming,
That's good.
Nate.
Here's my final thought.
Keep turning the key.
And I know I've said it a million times, but I just see, and it's getting better, but the construction industry shamed. You got to go to college. It's not a good future, but I think if schools started showing that, hey, yeah, that's a good route for you, and you can go to college, and that can lead you right back into the construction industry. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a good career, and it's a career that you can jump right into debt-free. You can make a good living. You can have a pension. You can have everything. Or you can take the college route, which will lead you right back to it, and you're still making a good living. It's nothing to be ashamed of to walk into a grocery store with dirt on your boots or covered in dirt. And I think too many people shame it, saying, oh, well, look at that bum. He didn't go to college, when, people are looking down at people that are making double what they are.
Yeah. I think a lot of people know that just because you went to college doesn't mean you're intelligent.
Well, that's true, too. Yeah.
Just like, and then just because you fucking laid brick for 20 years doesn't mean you're great at it either. I mean, I think that exists for both sides.
But I think the instant judgment comes is,
Sure.
oh, look at them covered in dirt.
Yeah, that's Marxism, dude. It's class. No, it's class stuff. I'm saying it's class stuff. It's haves and have-nots. It's whatever it is.
All right.
It's
Nate,
dirty guys and non-dirty guys.
Let's hear Nate's final thoughts, because we're all idiots.
I mean, I feel like we're just starting this conversation. There's a lot to unpack here. This is,
Right.
He likes unpack too, like your brother.
Sorry that our final thoughts got to your beginning.
No,
We're really good at podcasting.
No, it's good. I mean, and my hope all along was that it would be an organic conversation. I think it's been just that. And did we get everywhere I was hoping? No, but that do you ever?
Yeah. Yeah. Not with this.
I think my final thoughts, and just for people listening, is a reminder that education is cyclical. The needs of society to advance and progress is also cyclical. And we're in a time right now where I think education systems are huge bureaucracies, right? They are pseudo-government agencies controlled by an elected panel of people who don't really know much about business development, entrusted to people who you think can run some of the largest corporations in your cities oftentimes, right? Like school districts are huge behemoths of companies, which means they are slow to change. That change is coming, at least in the Kansas City region, through a lot of really good kind of local grant initiatives, through the Real World Learning Initiative, through the Kauffman Foundation, through a lot of philanthropic engagement from the construction and trades community. The awareness is there. I mean, I think I saw a Department of Labor statistic that the United States is going to be short 80 to 90,000 electricians this year. Because of data centers and the evolution of where we are building and what we are building. We don't need residential office space. That market's crashing. But we need electricians because of the load. And, teachers want to do the right thing by kids. I think we talked a little bit about union and non-union. And it's figuring out, like, how do we help students in this K-12 space really grow and develop as human beings? How do we help them understand that, like you said, school counseling, part of the career strand is like, look, just because your parent's a doctor doesn't mean you shouldn't respect that person who's covered in dirt at the grocery store. Sure. They worked hard to make sure that your toilet flushed today. They worked hard to make sure that you have running water, that you have gas, that when that winter storm came through a couple weeks ago, that your lights stayed on.
Your furnace working, your lights stayed on, man.
Yeah. And I can't do that. I can't do that work. I run a construction nonprofit. I know my own limitations. I am not very handy. I will break some shit.
Same.
Can I give you a fun icebreaker as the final?
Sure.
Anytime that you talk to a group of students, find out if there's a kid named Mason.
Is his dad's a bricklayer?
Ask him his fucking dad's a bricklayer. In my own personal data collection, well over 50% of Mason children are named from a bricklayer's father.
Anecdotal, but it seems to follow a pattern.
It's fucking hilarious.
Those are different
and
unions.
I'll say that. No. Mason's bricklayer. Same.
Yeah. I'm thinking of operative plasters.
I will flat out say it is the most anecdotal and comical data collection I've ever had in my life, which is, okay, I work for a group of bricklayers, and how many Mason kids you got? Okay, raise your hand. Fuck it, you got Mason 1 through 9.
Well, what I want to say is, Nate, thanks for being here. Yeah. But more or less, we brought up earlier that this is Brian's final episode being here weekly. He's still going to fill in and stuff. So I wanted to thank Brian for all of your time and your gray wisdom.
Something. Bullshit.
Yeah.
A little bit of that.
More bullshit than anything.
I got a little wisdom, a little bit.
But thank you both, and we are out.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.